The Zypherian homeworld was burning. Flames stretched across the once thriving cities, reduced now to rubble and ash. In the darkened sky above, massive Tarkan warships hovered like hungry beasts, their cannons still glowing from the destruction they had unleashed. The Zypherians, once proud, once strong, were now nothing more than refugees, running for their lives. Deep beneath the surface, hidden in the ruins of an underground command center, Commander Valen stood with his last surviving officers. His pale blue skin was covered in dust, his golden eyes filled with despair. Their people were dying, and the galaxy had turned its back on them. "Commander, the signal is ready," said a young Zypherian technician, her voice shaking. "We don't have much power left." Valen clenched his fists. They had sent distress signals to every major civilization in the galaxy, the Galactic Council, the Yulari Federation, even the dreaded Zenthari pirates. But no one had answered. No one wanted to challenge the Tarkan Empire. They were alone, and soon they would be extinct. With a deep breath, Valen stepped forward and pressed the final transmission button. A plea for help. Across the void of space, a weak SOS signal pulsed out from the ruins of Zephyria. A message, desperate and simple. "To anyone who can hear this, we are the Zypherian people. Our home has been destroyed. The Tarkan Empire hunts us. We have no weapons left, no ships to run. We beg you, please, help us. Save us, before it is too late." The message repeated, again and again. But deep in his heart, Valen knew the truth. No one was coming. A forgotten world hears the call. Light years away, on a small blue planet known as Earth, a deep space listening station picked up the Zephyrian signal. Lieutenant Sarah Walker, stationed at the remote outpost, leaned closer to her screen as the transmission played. The voice was weak, almost fading, but the words were clear. A species was begging for its survival. Her hands trembled as she forwarded the message to Fleet Command. Minutes later, deep inside the United Earth Defense Headquarters, Admiral Jonathan Reeves watched the replay of the Zephyrian plea. Around him, high-ranking officials whispered among themselves. Earth was still new to the galactic stage. They had spent decades proving themselves to larger civilizations, trying to earn respect among the stars. And yet, when the Zephyrians begged for help, the powerful empires had turned away. Admiral Reeves exhaled sharply. "They're alone," he said, "and we're the only ones listening." Silence. Finally, General Ethan Carter spoke. "If we answer this call, we make an enemy of the Tarkan Empire." Reeves's expression was firm. "And if we don't, we let an entire species die." A long pause. Then the admiral turned toward his officers. "Prepare a rescue fleet." Humanity had made its choice. They would not turn away. A faint light in the darkness. On the dying world of Zephyria, Valen slumped against the console, exhausted. The bunker was growing colder. Their energy supplies were nearly gone. One of his officers approached, shaking her head. "Still no response, Commander." Valen sighed. This was the end. But then, a faint beep. The console flickered. The room fell silent. One officer's voice trembled with disbelief. "Commander, someone is answering." Valen's eyes widened. He rushed to the console as a signal cut through the darkness of space, clear and strong. A human voice. Steady, resolute. "Zephyrian survivors, this is the United Earth Defense Fleet. We've received your distress signal. Help is on the way." For the first time in days, hope returned. Valen closed his eyes, whispering a silent prayer. Humanity had answered. And for the first time, the Zephyrians were not alone. The night was silent in the ruins of Zephyria. The only sound was the distant hum of Tarkan drones, scanning the wreckage for any survivors. Deep underground, Commander Valen and his remaining officers gathered around the console, their golden eyes fixed on the screen. The message repeated in crisp, clear tones. "Zephyrian survivors, This is the United Earth Defense Fleet. We've received your distress signal. Help is on the way. A mixture of shock and disbelief spread across the bunker. Humans? One of the officers whispered. Why would they help us? Valen didn't have an answer. No one had come to their aid. Not the Galactic Council, not the powerful empires. Why would a young, relatively unknown species risk war with the Tarkans to save them? But he knew one thing. If this was real, it was their only chance at survival. A race against time. Hundreds of light years away, aboard the UES Aegis, Admiral Jonathan Reeves stood in the command center of the rescue fleet. Before him, a massive holographic display showed the shattered world of Zephyria. Our intel confirms Tarkan patrols still orbit the planet, reported Captain Ryan Carter. If they catch us, they'll see this as an act of war. Reeves nodded. Then we move fast. We're not here to fight. We're here to get those people out. A comm officer called out. Admiral, we're receiving another transmission. It's them. Reeves turned to the screen. The face of Commander Valen appeared, haggard and weary, but his eyes burned with determination. Human fleet, we received your message, Valen said cautiously. But why? No one else answered our calls. Why would your people risk themselves for us? Reeves's expression was firm. Because no one deserves to be abandoned. Silence. Then, for the first time in a long while, Valen felt hope. The arrival. The Zephyrian survivors gathered in the bunker, their hearts pounding as distant booms echoed above. Valen turned to his officers. If the Tarkans detect them, they'll attack. We need to move the survivors to the extraction point. They began their desperate march through the ruins. Every step was filled with fear. A single Tarkan drone could alert the fleet above. Then the sky split open with fire. The first human dropships cut through the atmosphere, their engines roaring. Their design was unlike anything the Zephyrians had seen. Sleek, powerful, and fast. The lead dropship landed hard on the cracked ground. The doors hissed open. And then, for the first time, the Zephyrians saw them. Humans. They stepped out in armored exosuits, their weapons scanning the area. But their posture was not one of hostility, but protection. Captain Ryan Carter removed his helmet, revealing a strong but reassuring expression. He extended his hand. Let's get you out of here. The moment the human dropships touched down, the Zephyrian survivors felt both relief and terror. Help had arrived, but so had the enemy. Above them, the Tarkan patrol fleet detected the atmospheric entry. Alarms blared aboard the Tarkan command ship orbiting Zephyria. Tarkan warship. Command deck. High Commander Varish narrowed his reptilian eyes at the blinking red alert on the holoscreen. Unknown ships entering the atmosphere, reported a Tarkan officer. Varish's clawed hand tightened into a fist. Who dares interfere? The screen zoomed in, displaying the emblem of Earth's United Defense Fleet. Varish let out a low growl. Humans. Foolish creatures. They do not understand what they've done. He turned to his crew. Launch the interceptors. Annihilate them. Groundside. The last hope. Captain Ryan Carter gripped his rifle as he scanned the Zephyrian survivors. Weak, exhausted, but determined. He tapped his earpiece. Admiral, we have the survivors, but we need to move. Now. Through the thick smoke, Commander Valen stepped forward. His voice was tense. How many can you take? Carter didn't hesitate. All of you. For a moment, Valen was speechless. No species had ever offered such mercy before. He gave a sharp nod. Then let's go. The Zephyrians rushed toward the dropships. The engines roared as the first wave boarded. But then, the sky burned red. A desperate escape. Tarkan attack drones swooped in, unleashing a barrage of plasma fire. The ground erupted in explosions, throwing debris in all directions. A Zephyrian child screamed. Valen grabbed the boy, shielding him from the blast. Carter raised his rifle. Cover fire. Get them on board. The human soldiers moved with perfect coordination, laying down suppressive fire as the Zephyrians scrambled up the ramps. Above them, the Tarkin interceptors broke through the clouds. "Damn it," Carter muttered. He tapped his comm. "Command, we need air support right now." A show of strength. From high orbit, Admiral Jonathan Reeves watched the incoming enemy fleet. His expression remained calm, but his voice was cold. "Send a message to the Tarkins." A communications officer nodded. "Message ready, sir." Reeves stepped forward. "Tarkin Fleet, this is Admiral Reeves of the United Earth Defense Fleet. We are conducting a rescue operation. Stand down or be engaged." The Tarkin commander's laugh echoed over the channel. "Your primitive species dares to challenge us. You have no idea who you're dealing with." Reeves smiled slightly. "Neither do you." He turned to his weapons officer. "Fire the railguns." The Earth strikes back. From the UES Aegis, massive railguns charge, and then fired. The kinetic rounds shattered the lead Tarkin cruiser in a single devastating impact. The entire battlefield changed in an instant. The Tarkins, used to weaker species bowing before them, suddenly realized the humans were not weak, and they were not afraid. The final moments. On the ground, the last survivors boarded the dropships as the Tarkins fell back. Carter turned to Valen. "You're safe now." The Zephyrian commander, shaken but alive, nodded. "I never thought anyone would fight for us." Carter smirked. "Welcome to humanity." The dropships launched into the sky, heading toward the fleet. Behind them, the Tarkin forces hesitated. For the first time in history, they had met a species willing to stand against them. And the war had just begun. The human dropships raced through the thick atmosphere of Zephyria, their engines roaring as they pushed toward orbit. Inside, the rescued Zephyrian survivors sat in stunned silence, their golden eyes filled with a mix of fear and awe. Commander Valen looked across the cabin at Captain Ryan Carter, who was calmly securing his rifle. These humans had done the impossible. They had defied the Tarkins and survived. But it wasn't over yet. Tarkin Fleet. A furious response. On the bridge of the Tarkin warship Bloodfang, High Commander Varish bared his fangs in anger. "The humans dare to strike us." He snarled, watching as wreckage from his fallen cruiser drifted in space. No species had ever openly attacked the Tarkins, and lived. A Tarkin officer turned. "High Commander, shall we pursue?" Varish's eyes gleamed with cold fury. "No, we will obliterate them." He stepped forward, claws tapping against the metal floor. "Prepare the flagship's plasma cannon. Target the human fleet." The Tarkins had no interest in a prolonged battle. They would end this in a single devastating strike. Aboard the UES Aegis, a terrifying threat. Alarms blared on the human command ship as Admiral Jonathan Reeves stared at the incoming energy readings. "Sir," his weapons officer called out, "the Tarkin flagship is charging its main cannon." Reeves knew exactly what that meant. If that cannon fired, the entire fleet would be wiped out. "Time to fire," Reeves asked. 30 seconds. Reeves exhaled. There was no way they could get the Zephyrian dropships to safety in time. He had only one choice: a direct strike. "Send this message to the Tarkin flagship," he ordered. "Tell them to stand down, or we fire everything we have." The comm officer hesitated. "Sir, that could start a full-scale war." Reeves met his gaze. "It already has. A desperate plan." Meanwhile, inside Carter's dropship, the cabin shook violently. "We've got company," the pilot shouted. Carter looked out the viewport. Tarkin interceptors were closing in fast. Valen grabbed his arm. "We can't outrun them, can we?" Carter grinned. "No, but we can outfight them." He tapped his comm. "Aegis, we need cover." "Now." "Copy that," came the reply. "Brace yourselves." A moment later, streaks of white-hot light tore through the sky as Earth's warships unleashed their railguns. The Tarkin interceptors never stood a chance. The dropships pierced the upper atmosphere, finally reaching the safety of Earth's fleet. But the real battle was still ahead. The final standoff. Aboard the UES Aegis, Reeves watched as the Tarkin flagship locked onto them. A deep voice crackled over the comms. "High Commander Varish. Humans," he growled, "you have made a grave mistake." Reeves didn't flinch. "We made a choice. To stand where others ran." A pause. Then Varish laughed coldly. "You are bold, but boldness will not save you." The energy readings spiked. The Tarkin cannon was about to fire. Reeves gave a final order. "All ships, fire at will." Fire and fury. The void of space erupted in fire. The UES Aegis unleashed its full arsenal, railgun slugs tearing through Tarkin armor, missile salvos striking with pinpoint accuracy. The Tarkans retaliated, plasma bolts scorching through the darkness, shaking Earth's vessels to their cores. For the first time in history, the Tarkans had met a species that could match their firepower. And they weren't ready for it. The battle was fierce, but it was short. Within minutes, the Tarkin flagship's engines detonated, sending the warship drifting into the abyss. Varish's final words echoed through the comms. "This is not over." Then, silence. The Tarkans retreated. Humanity had won. For now. A new war begins. As the smoke cleared, Valen stepped onto the command deck of the Aegis, looking at the damage. "You fought for us," he said quietly, when no one else would. Reeves nodded. "That's what we do." Valen's expression hardened. "The Tarkans will return. In greater numbers. They won't stop until we're both destroyed." Carter crossed his arms. "Then we'll be ready." Because for the first time in galactic history, the Tarkans had an enemy they couldn't crush. And that enemy was humanity. A galaxy in shock. The news spread like wildfire. Humanity had defeated the Tarkans. No one in the galaxy had ever won a battle against them. Not once. On distant worlds, alien leaders watched in stunned silence. The Tarkin Empire, known for its ruthless conquests, had been forced to retreat. The impossible had happened, but everyone knew what came next. The Tarkans never lost without revenge. And this time, they wouldn't just attack. They would destroy. Inside the Human War Council, on board the UES Aegis, Admiral Jonathan Reeves stood at the holographic war table. "The Tarkans won't accept defeat," Reeves said. "They'll return, stronger, angrier, and with an armée." Captain Ryan Carter folded his arms. "So, what's our play?" "We prepare," Reeves said. He turned to the Zephyrian leader, Valen. "You said your people have been hiding from the Tarkans for years. You know their strategies. We need that intel." Valen nodded. "We have knowledge of their fleet movements, their weak points. But there's something else." He hesitated. Carter raised an eyebrow. "Something worse." Valen's golden eyes darkened. "The Tarkans aren't just bringing ships. They're bringing a weapon." The room fell silent. "What kind of weapon?" Reeves asked. Valen took a slow breath. "They call it the cleansing fire. The Tarkan superweapon." On the Tarkan war world of Gaul, High Commander Varish stood before a massive energy core, its pulse shaking the very ground beneath him. This was the cleansing fire. It was no ordinary weapon. It didn't just destroy planets. It erased them. Every molecule, every trace of existence, gone in seconds. Varish's second-in-command, Commander Xalruan, stepped forward. "The humans fought harder than expected," Xalruan said. Varish's claws tightened into a fist. "Then we will show them why no one defies us." He turned to the technicians. "Prepare the cleansing fire. Target: Earth." A deep hum filled the air as the weapon awakened. The race against time. On the Aegis, alarms blared. A technician ran to Reeves. "Sir, we intercepted a Tarkin transmission." Reeves scanned the message. His heart sank. "Tar GT, Earth. Weapon. Cleansing fire. Deployment 48 HOURs. Carter clenched his fists. They're going after civilians now. That's what the Tarkans do, Valen said grimly. They don't fight wars. They erase species. Reeves exhaled sharply. We have 2 days. Carter looked up. Then we have to stop that weapon before it fires. Valen nodded. There's only one way. We take the fight to them. A dangerous plan. Reeves pointed to the holographic map. The Tarkan war world of Gaul. It's deep in enemy space, Reeves said. No human fleet has ever gone that far. Carter grinned. Good thing we're not just a human fleet anymore. He looked at Valen. Your people know the Tarkan defenses. Can you get us in? Valen's eyes glowed. We can. But if we fail, there won't be an Earth left to go back to. Reeves finished. The War Council fell silent. Then Reeves straightened. We don't wait for war to come to us. He looked around at his crew. We take the fight to them. Carter smirked. Let's go ruin their day. The mission begins. The fleet prepared for the most dangerous mission in human history. Stealth ships were loaded. Weapons were armed. A strike team was chosen. In 48 hours, the Tarkans would erase Earth, unless humanity erased them first. And so, for the first time ever, humans and Zephyrians prepared to fight side by side. Not for survival, for vengeance. The mission begins. The human Zephyrian fleet moved in total silence, hidden by the darkness of space. The Tarkan war world of Gaul loomed ahead. A mechanical planet, heavily armed, and pulsing with the power of the cleansing fire. Admiral Reeves stood on the command deck of the UES Aegis, watching as their fleet approached enemy territory. This is it, he said. We either stop that weapon, or Earth is gone. Captain Ryan Carter adjusted his combat gear. Then let's make sure we don't fail. Valen, the Zephyrian leader, pointed at the holographic map. We can get you inside. The Tarkans have blind spots in their orbital defenses. If we hit them fast enough, they won't know what's happening until it's too late. Reeves nodded. Then let's move. Stealth entry. 3 stealth ships launched from the fleet, carrying an elite team of human and Zephyrian soldiers. They weaved through asteroid fields, avoiding patrols, cloaked from Tarkan sensors. Inside one of the ships, Carter tightened his grip on his rifle. Landing in 60 seconds, the pilot announced. Valen stood beside him. Once we're inside, we'll have minutes before they raise the alarms. Carter smirked. Plenty of time. The ships descended through the thick, stormy atmosphere of Gaul. As they neared the surface, massive towers of metal and fire loomed in front of them. Tarkan war machines patrolled the area. Then, impact. The ships landed, kicking up dust. The soldiers rushed out, weapons ready. They were in. Now, the real fight began. Inside the enemy fortress, the team moved through dark corridors, avoiding detection. The air smelled of oil and metal, and the walls pulsed with alien energy. Valen led them forward. The power core is ahead. If we take it down, the weapon won't fire. A Tarkan patrol unit appeared around the corner. Carter fired first. A burst of plasma dropped the nearest soldier, but the others turned, their red eyes flaring. The alarm blared. We're out of time. Reeves shouted through the comms. Move fast. The battle inside. The corridors erupted in chaos. Tarkan guards swarmed the area, firing deadly plasma shots. The human Zephyrian team fought back, using cover, grenades, and sheer determination. Carter took down 2 enemies with precise headshots. Valen moved like a shadow, slashing through Tarkans with energy blades. We need to get to that core, Carter yelled. A massive Tarkan war beast emerged, a towering cybernetic monster covered in armor. It roared and charged. Carter rolled aside just as it smashed through a wall. Reeves' voice crackled over the radio. We're running out of time. The cleansing fire is powering up. Valen leaped onto the beast's back, plunging his blade into its neck. Sparks erupted as the monster collapsed. Carter reloaded. Let's move. The core room. They burst through the final door, entering a massive energy chamber. At its center, the cleansing fire's core pulsed, seconds away from full charge. A deep voice filled the room. You are too late. High Commander Varish stood before them. He was taller than any Tarkin they had faced. His black armor pulsed with energy, and his claws dripped with plasma. Carter raised his weapon. Funny, I was just about to say the same thing. Varish lunged. The final fight had begun. The enemy's last defense. Varish lunged forward, his plasma claws slashing through the air. Carter barely dodged, feeling the heat as the energy crackled inches from his face. The Zypherian leader, Valen, blocked Varish's second strike with his energy blades, locking weapons in a deadly struggle. Sparks erupted as their blades clashed. We don't have time for this, Reeves shouted through the comms. The cleansing fire is nearly at full charge. Carter aimed his rifle and fired a burst of plasma. Varish twisted at the last second, avoiding the fatal hit, but the shot grazed his shoulder, burning through his armor. The Tarkin roared in fury and slammed his massive fist into the ground. The impact sent a shockwave through the chamber, knocking the team off balance. Disabling the weapon. Valen recovered first. Carter, take the core down. I'll handle him. Carter didn't hesitate. He sprinted toward the cleansing fire's power core, a massive sphere of glowing energy suspended in the air. It was heavily shielded, and time was running out. Behind him, Varish and Valen clashed in a deadly dance of speed and power. The Zypherian was fast, but Varish was stronger. A massive explosion rocked the chamber as Reeves and his squad breached the control room, providing cover fire. Carter, now or never, Reeves shouted. Carter pulled out the EMP disruptor, their last hope. He set the charge against the core. 10 seconds. He turned and ran for cover as alarms blared across the Tarkin fortress. Varish saw what was happening. No. He shoved Valen aside and charged toward the core. 5 seconds. Carter aimed his weapon. Not today. He fired. The shot hit Varish square in the chest, staggering the Tarkin warlord just as. Boom. The EMP detonated, sending a massive shockwave through the chamber. The cleansing fire flickered, its energy collapsing in on itself. The countdown stopped. The weapon was dead. The escape. The fortress began to shake as systems overloaded. Sparks rained down, and explosions erupted across the structure. Move. Move. Move, Reeves commanded. Carter grabbed Valen, who was injured but alive. Together, they ran toward the extraction point as the Tarkin stronghold collapsed behind them. Outside, the human Zypherian fleet rained fire on the enemy defenses, covering their escape. Their transport ship blasted off, leaving the war-torn planet behind. The aftermath. Back on the UES Aegis, Carter and Valen stood before the fleet. The war was over. The Tarkins had lost their superweapon. Earth was safe. The Zypherians had their home back. Reeves turned to Carter. Hell of a job. Carter smirked. Told you we'd win. Valen placed a hand over his chest, a Zypherian sign of deep respect. Humanity has done more than fight. You have given my people hope. The stars stretched before them. The war was over. But humanity's legend had only just begun.